Welcome to FOB TV, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist here at TCS, and I want to thank all of you guys for joining us on this hot summer day. My guest, I'm really excited to introduce him, Deepak Seth. Deepak, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's been a year since I last came to your show. Since then, the show has done great. I believe you have just been awarded in the top 5 shows of social media content by Thinkers 360. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. And I know you are also listed as one of the top influencers and experts on AI. So that even makes us more excited to have you on the show.
Absolutely. Very excited and always a pleasure talking to you, Kevin, and your followers too.
Awesome. So where are you calling in from today?
If you are hot, I'm hotter. I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. So it's pretty hot here. We have started hitting our 100-degree days. So it's hot outside.
We've got 106 on the forecast for today here in Idaho. Now, we don't get many of those. Those are like a handful each year, but we're recording on that day. All right. So you've changed career positions since we last talked a year ago. What are you doing today?
Yeah, I am now with Gartner. I joined Gartner as an expert analyst, a director expert analyst with their data analytics and AI team. So very excited to be here. Everybody knows what Gartner is. I think most people do and what it does. So I'm very, very excited and honored to be part of this great group of professionals bringing actionable insights for our clients.
This is going to be so much fun. Now, in preparing for this today, Deepak, I went back through your LinkedIn profile and looked at your educational section. Now, this is really interesting to me because we talk a lot about education and the future of higher education, things like that. And I see represented in your past, in your resume, if you would, continually, every few years, you go back and you get more education at different institutions. And I just see that, it's this pattern in your life. Talk to us about that.
I think it means you hit the nail on head. Means if we have to confront the future, we have to get ready for it in our present kind of thing. I tend to look ahead about what's coming down the pike kind of thing. So my basic degrees was in industrial engineering, which people said is just common sense. And then I used to say common sense is not so common kind of thing, followed by management education. But then I, as you said, continuously kept upskilling myself. Few years ago, I saw the AI bus coming down the pike and I said, okay, let me go back to school and educate myself about AI. This was before the generative AI phase hit. So means continuous reinvention is part of the game, is the part of our career longevity. And also our intellectual longevity means it keeps us, the more we keep our brains occupied and busy, the better equipped we are to deal with whatever the world throws at us.
So I see that in both of our careers, we've both been in the industry for a number of decades, and we've seen all kinds of technologies and trends emerge and develop and mature. How does generative AI and what we're experiencing at this point in our careers, how does that compare to other emerging technologies? Is it the same? Is it bigger? Is it smaller? Tell us about where you would rank generative AI and AI in general as from your experience in your career.
So great question, Kevin. So in terms of the way technology evolves, I think it is following generative AI, or AI is following almost the same trend as most of the other technological innovations have shown in the past, whether it is electricity, whether it's aviation, whether it is automobiles. They come and it takes quite a long time for technology to become commonly adopted by the masses. But what has changed with generative AI and AI, more so with generative AI, even than AI, is the pace of change kind of thing. For example, if we just use a metric like getting 1 million users kind of thing. So Chat GPT or generative AI got its 1 million users in, say, whatever, 5 days or something like that. But electricity, to put it in context, to get its 1 million users would have taken a much longer time, and means a few decades. Automobiles also took a few decades. Aviation took the time span is shrinking. So what has changed is the rapid pace of technology evolution, though the pattern is more or less same.
Is that because of the analog and digital thing, where digital, you don't have to build and distribute and send out and adopt? You can push a button or click your phone and you can instantly have the power of generative AI. How would you consider that?
So I think a lot of it is every technology builds on what has already been built kind of thing. So much of the human connectivity has been built by earlier phases of technology. So even aviation, automobiles, then internet, it is making human society much more interconnected. And so now when generative AI came about, means it, as you rightly said, it's just click a button because we are already so connected. And then the nature of the technology itself, it being digital, also has helped increase the speed.
Oh yeah, I mean we can see. Okay, there was computers, then there's telephones, then there's mobile networks, and then there's the internet. So all of these things have served to connect us, and now we're into 5G, which gives us the ability to move massive amounts of data, right? All these things just set it up. So when generative AI was developed and made available, it could instantaneously spread across all of those networks.
Absolutely. And the way generative AI has come about also is because it's finally the hardware catching up with the software kind of thing, because AI as a concept or the underlying principles have been around a long period of time, since the 1960s. So the concepts around generative AI have been around for a long time, but it's now finally when the marriage between the NVIDIA GPUs and the new software and hardware, when they got intertwined together, then this revolution got unleashed. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's the cloud aspect, right? When you can have data centers and cloud and all those processors in those data centers, then you can just distribute the power of AI as well. Fascinating. So let's talk about the impact of AI. I can think of a number of different ways of looking at it. What is the horizontal impact across tasks and various business processes? There's vertical industry impact. How's it going to change banking or manufacturing or supply chain, that kind of stuff. So we're looking at horizontal or vertical, but what other ways? How do you guys look at AI and the impact of AI? How do you kind of categorize it?
I think where we are headed now, and everything starts off by being vertical or horizontal, but where and the pace with which this is evolving, it can very quickly reach what we can call pervasive or ubiquitous. It is everywhere around us. It is embedded in other tools and technologies which we use on a daily basis. It's almost like where electricity is right now. We don't care how it is generated, where it is made, how it comes to us. We just flick the switch on and we expect our devices to work. So AI has the potential of reaching that space. Obviously, it has to evolve. There are a lot of issues which need to be resolved before it reaches that stage of pervasiveness, and simultaneously the fear of AI amongst people will get reduced over a period of time, and then it will reach that stage of pervasiveness.
Oh wow. So let's talk more about the impact of it. There's some kind of obvious impact that we all see. It can answer basic trivia questions. We can create cartoon drawings and likenesses. We can imitate our voices or make static photos become animated photos. All these kinds of things that we see on Instagram or TikTok or other kinds of things, or we experience ourselves. But what are some of the impacts of AI that perhaps are not considered as often, but maybe will have just as much impact?
I think so. What has happened is people have got enamored with these shiny objects, which AI, these little baubles, which have
Yeah.
come across in the evolution of AI. But what the key benefit of AI would be, it would make people and professionals better at doing what they already do, kind of thing. That would be the biggest impact of it. So if you're a physician whom you go regularly consult in a year, or whenever you visit, what if his or her ability to detect diseases becomes much more better?
Hmm.
His ability, or the ability of the companies to deal with the diseases which humans have, to come up with the solutions or come up with novel vaccines or medicines, gets improved. We are facing this severe weather all the time. The ability to predict the weather, or weather modeling improves, so that we are able to predict it better, so that the risks can be reduced, your insurance premiums can be better managed. So those kind of benefits will start accruing to it, where it's not the shiny object, but as I said earlier, the pervasive aspect of it, where it is embedded in the tools and technologies of corporations and individuals and professionals, making them become better at what they do.
Do you think that's a 3 year development cycle from now, a 5 year, 10 year? What's your gut feeling?
It is. I would say it is. It is, as these capabilities are being developed, they are getting rolled out. These are the ones where the direct customer interface is less, and there is already a rigorous process around how these things can be embedded into organizations. And since they provide competitive advantage to players, I think people will start using them in the near future rather than the long term future.
Wow. Let's talk about the concept of autonomous operations, Deepak. Autonomous operations, I would define those as the ability for AI to kind of follow rule-based and KPI-driven business processes and operate a business on its own. Is that something that you think is reasonable to expect in the future? Or am I just talking about, a fantasy world?
No, not fantasy at all. But what is fantasy today can become, or will become, the reality of tomorrow. We have seen that happen all the time. So that's the logical next progression. So right now, what AI or generative AI, the way we interact with it is through prompts. So we are prompting it, and it is doing something. The next stage would be, hey, promptless or no prompt AI, or as you say, goal seeking AI. So once the goals have been defined, the human intervention can be minimalized. It may start off with some basic problems, some goal seeking problems, and it is already in motion. For example, if if a driverless car or a driverless truck can be set up to reach a particular, from point A to point B, it is doing that goal seeking behavior. It will optimize the route and will reach your destination. So it is eminently doable. It will start with the processes which are very, very rule based and rule driven, like the case of going from point A to point B.
Yeah.
But then slowly that other layers will start introducing in, where getting introduced, where there is more variability, which for which right now we assume that the human is the best way of reducing the variability. But I'm sure there would be many people who would say that, what, humans are the biggest cause of creating chaos in well-running processes. So the jury is still out on that, but let's see how it evolves.
Oh, yeah. All we have to do is look at the debate around autonomous self-driving cars and human drivers, where the human drivers are much more susceptible to distractions and everything else, and cause a great deal of the number of accidents out there. And so rule-based seems to really lean in favor of AI. I can imagine a large farm where the goal, and I really like the way you describe that, goal-based, where if you assign a goal, I want to maximize profits from my agricultural crops. I want it to be to maximize my economic gain. So give it the right amount of fertilizer and water and treatment and therapies and whatever else plants need. But but consider the economics of it, so you can optimize the economic value of those crops. That would be such a fascinating thing.
Awesome. I hadn't thought of that one, but that is good. But the building blocks of that are, I saw a video a few months ago, which was around this large tractor, which had a device fit on the back, which was able to identify the weeds in the based on image recognition, and then zap those individual weeds. So which was using some directed light or energy or whatever. So it was saving. I mean, it is organic, it is pesticide free, and it is very, very focused. That specific weed was being killed amongst all the plants. So it's phenomenal.
One of the most interesting parts to me of using generative AI in research and things is when you can request value judgments from AI, where you can say, what do you think? Rank these in order of importance. And then it ranks a list in order of importance. I think that is phenomenal. And you can also say, what is the biggest competitive advantages one organization has over another, or one product over another? And it does a pretty good job of giving you a basic list of some of the, the value, but some of the list of competitive advantages, but is based on these judgments. And that is an area that I think is just really interesting when you ask it to make judgments. So I'm thinking ahead and saying, can you use generative AI to identify startup potentials? Which ones, where would be the best place to create a startup and why? From a perspective of an industry and geography and product category and all of these kinds of things. It just seems so interesting.
It is, and we have just scratched the surface yet, because this generative AI, which we are seeing now, is based on the concept of the large language model, which, as you know, is like it has ingested all the information in the world, and it is coming out with the outputs kind of thing. An argument can be made that just because you have read all the books in the world, you're not necessarily the smartest person kind of thing. And to that point, I think a lot of research is now happening on, and which excites me a lot, about the nature of human intelligence kind of thing. So the large language model has been taught by reading all the books in the world kind of thing. But that's not how a human baby learns. A human baby learns with only like a vocabulary of 30,000 words or something, and some research going on in New York University around what are the other factors in play which make a human baby learn. And there are things like parental gaze and the feedback and all that kind of thing. So if those kind of capabilities will sooner or later start creeping into these models, where you're not relying on just the ingested language, but this kind of capability to learn with minimal information, I mean, that's the next frontier. Another related aspect on this is, like, people right now assume that language and intelligence has been equated. So it is large language model leading to intelligence. And I just read a paper recently which was talking about how humans whose speech center or language center in the brain is destroyed are still able to think. So language is not essential for thinking. That's the point being made. And so and they are able to do some mathematical reasoning exercises and all without the language center being operational in the brain. So if language is not the basis of our intelligence, there are certain other factors in play. So it would be interesting to see where this whole field evolves in the future.
Oh, wow. So in my career, I've had the opportunity to be a part of a number of startup leadership teams. And it's interesting when you're doing a startup, there's some key things that startups need to do. They need to stay focused. They need to not try to accomplish everything. They have to be very focused on delivering value, and then do it economically and fast enough to keep up with the market, or even surpass the speed that the market is maturing. All of these kinds of things, there's kind of a list of what would give a startup the highest level of success and the highest chance of success. But humans forget all those things. And as you said a little bit ago, they chase shiny objects. And so startups often flounder because of that. But if you had an AI that was trained on, it's almost like an AI board member that was trained in how to maximize the opportunity that startups have, and then have that keep everybody on focused and on task, wouldn't that be powerful?
That would really be powerful. And on that point, recently the UAE has its first company with a AI board member. So AI on AI robot, I don't know what form it is in, but it is on the board and will be vetting decisions or giving advice, as you are saying. So obviously, what can work on the board can also work as a mentor, and not just that's one of the biggest powers of AI. Even in the field of education, it will democratize education because it will make it so much more accessible to individuals. So even a person who cannot go to, say, a fancy named school kind of thing can still have a co-pilot or a guide or an AI guide on his or her cell phone, and that can guide them through life or guide them through a course or through problems and all that kind of stuff.
Oh man, that is a fascinating because I remember thinking through the process. Okay, you can have AI workers, which are on the assembly line building cars, and they know how to weld and how to move a car and how to paint a car. And then you could have assembly line AI managers that oversee all the equipment, all the processes, and do quality analysis. But over those managers, you could have, vice presidents that look over the whole plant. And then you could have those robotic AI executives that are at the board level that oversee multiple factories. And it's just fascinating because they could all be trained on the same kind of data, so they're perfectly in sync.
Kevin, you'll start scaring people now.
So Gartner is famous for their Gartner hype cycle. Talk to us about where generative AI is on there. Where is it on that hype cycle today?
Yeah, so it's exciting. Hype cycle is one of our, along with the Magic Quadrant, it is one of the most popular pieces of research coming out of Gartner. And generative AI, if we look at where it is on the hype cycle in 2024, so it has already means we think it has reached that peak of inflated expectations. It has crossed that peak. And this, we are talking not about the technology, we are talking about the hype associated with the technology.
Yes.
So it has reached, so it starts with the innovation trigger, it climbed up that curve, it crossed that peak of inflated expectations. And now it is coming down to what will ultimately be the trough of disillusionment. And that will be because people would have made big investments in AI, and then they start questioning, hey, are we getting the returns which we thought we did? And every technology follows that same curve. And even after that, I mean, there is again a slope of enlightenment. So it rises up again once the real players get involved in it, and then it will ultimately get into the plateau of productivity. So even when it starts coming down that curve into the trough of disillusionment, the area under the curve beyond that stage is also huge. So most of the productivity benefits, the gains to humanity and all, can happen as the hype dies out and it goes into the real world applications. And even as generative AI is moving down the hype cycle, other terms associated with generative AI and AI in general are climbing up the hype circle also. You may have retrieval augmented generation, you may have composite AI, you may have responsible AI. It means all those things are coming right behind. So once again, a quick grounding to the people. We are not talking about the technology, we are talking about the hype associated with the
right. It's what everybody's writing about, talking about, what all the seminars. And yeah.
And it's fascinating how almost any technology you take, it follows that curve. So within 2 to 5 years means this would be this, once it comes down the peak of inflated expectations, then it will be in that productivity plateau within 2 to 5 years. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Deepak, thanks for joining us today, sharing your brilliance, the knowledge, and the work that you guys do at Gartner. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Kevin. Look forward to joining your show anytime, and all the best for you do. I think a conversation with you is always mind-blowing to say. So hopefully our audience will love it too. Thank you.